Aloe reclined in his favorite chair and felt something pop before sitting back up. He liked this spot in the bar because he could see all the various races come and go. Some would even ask for his advice. He was an old spacer with vast knowledge of this sector. It was said he had visited almost every system and most inhabited planets in his 170 galactic years. The young often sought stories of his adventures, but he was tired of traveling and had settled on this station orbiting the planet Nebula. Aloe was only slightly surprised when a tall reptilian alien approached him. The being looked familiar, but he couldn't quite identify its race. It stood at least 2.5 meters tall, with 4 muscular arms and a torso covered in tough, leather-like plates. Its triangular head had a blunt face with 6 eyes, a pair of nostrils, and a wide mouth filled with sharp-looking teeth, including 8 pronounced fangs. It wore only boots, pants, and a utility harness. "You are Aloe of Thero," the alien stated bluntly. Aloe stared up at the tall being before replying, "I am. And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?" "I am Bazur of the Kryn," he answered. "Ah yes, the Kryn." Aloe remembered now. His mind searched for what he knew about them. They were rarely seen outside their body armor and enclosed helmets. A warlike race from near the rim, they had appeared in this sector 20 years ago, raiding the outer worlds. 5 years later, they carved a foothold in the sector at the expense of the FTI. Without asking, Bazur sat down next to Aloe. "I understand you know many things about this sector," Bazur stated bluntly. Aloe thought to himself before answering, "Yes, I am well-traveled." "Good. You will come with me," Bazur added. Taken aback, Aloe replied, "Why in the hell would I do that?" "To meet my superiors." "You will be well compensated," Bazur said. Getting paid does change things, Aloe thought to himself. "And how far would I have to go?" he asked. "Compartment 10, Level 1, Bazur promptly replied. "So they are at the station and in one of the first-class quarters." "Interesting," Aloe thought before replying. "Lead on." It took about 10 minutes to reach the compartment. When the door opened, Aloe was slightly surprised to see just how many Kryn were in there, maybe 11 of them. After studying the Kryn for a moment, he concluded 6 were guards. Unlike Bazur, they wore a variety of garments that concealed their bodies. It suddenly occurred to Aloe that since they were rarely seen without their helmet and body armor, they were essentially in disguise and able to move about freely without anyone the wiser. He started to wonder just how many Kryn were hiding in plain sight across the sector. Bazur stepped forward and bowed. "This is Aloe of Thero, as ordered, Your Majesty." Bazur stepped aside so the others could see Aloe. Finding out he was meeting royalty caught him off guard, but he managed to recover. He gave a bow and spoke, "Your Majesty, I apologize, but I do not know who is who." A richly dressed Kryn stepped forward. "I am Inesa Vestis to Empress Shera, second wife of Emperor Anuk IV, he said with a sweeping gesture to the Empress. Aloe turned and bowed to the Empress. "My apologies, Your Majesty, for not knowing who you were." The Empress just gave a regal nod of her head. To be honest, Aloe couldn't tell the difference between male and female Kryn. Or were they all female, he wondered. Another Kryn stepped forward. Grand Stratego Inak Kushara. The Grand Stratego stepped forward and pushed a button on the console. A map of the sector appeared, with political boundaries marked on it. "We are embarking on a new campaign and need information about races that might be involved, their military capabilities, their allies, and their most important worlds," he said. Aloe was shocked at the question and, without thinking, uttered, "I can't do that. Help you kill an untold number of sentients." Empress Shera nodded to Inesa, who then stepped forward. "The Empress understands your reluctance and offers a compensation of 2 million galactic credits." Aloe almost fell over from shock. He could almost buy his own station with that much. Not a big one, but still. After wrestling with his conscience, he agreed to the proposal. The Empress nodded in satisfaction. Grand Stratego Inak Kushara pointed to an area on the map. "We plan to attack these humans and absorb their territory into our empire. We've heard rumors they do not maintain a large fleet and that they are afraid of war, that they'll negotiate a way out of it," Inak informed him. Aloe stared at them in horror. "You mean to attack the humans?" Taking care to pronounce it correctly for them. "Yes, in 2 standard months, the Grand Stratego informed him. After Alo regained his composure, he said, "No one in their right mind attacks the humans." Grand Stratego Inak Kushara laughed. "Why is that? They barely have a dozen systems. We have thousands. What kind of threat could a race afraid to fight be to us?" "Ask the Taruns," Alo muttered to himself, not intending for the Kryn to hear, but their hearing was better than he knew. "Who are these Taruns? How can we contact them?" Inak asked. "By summoning their ghosts," Alo thought to himself. "You can't. They are extinct in this sector, and there are only rumors of small drifter fleets of survivors never staying in one place too long. And these humans are responsible?" Inak scoffed. "So they beat some minor power, probably only a few planets, and we're supposed to be afraid of them?" Grand Stratego Inak Kushara scoffed. "Over 80 galactic years ago, the Taruns once controlled most of this sector," Alo explained, using his finger to indicate where it was. 138 systems, 600 habitable planets and moons, and hundreds more with vast resources to be harvested, including the dead rock we currently orbit, Alo finished. For a moment, Alo thought he saw doubt on some of their faces, but not being familiar with them, he wasn't sure. Grand Stratego Inak Kushara was not one of them. "We are the Kryn and fear no one, especially a race afraid of war, even if they won one decades ago. Go on with your explanation as to why we shouldn't attack them," the Empress said. All of the Kryn seemed shocked that she spoke. "Your Majesty, this alien is not worthy to hear you speak," Inesa exclaimed. Grand Stratego Inak Kushara also spoke out. "Your Majesty, forgive me, but as Second Empress, you are only here in a ceremonial role." With a glare, the Empress addressed them both. "That is usually so, but I feel this is important enough for the Emperor to hear all of it, and not just selected tidbits." She addressed the Stratego directly. "Would you like me to contact my husband, the Emperor, and see how he responds to my break in ceremony, especially after I tell him how you're ignoring the Theron's warning?" "I like this one," Alo thought to himself. Both of the Kryn acquiesced to the Empress. Looking back towards Alo, she ordered, "Please continue." "Yes, Your Majesty," Alo bowed and replied. "The humans are not afraid of war because of what an enemy may do. Humans are afraid of what it can make them become," Alo started. "I had a human friend long ago that once explained it to me. Like you, the Taruns saw them as easy pickings." Alo explained. The humans were new to the galactic community and had just started to expand out of their home system. When the Taruns found out how much time passed between the humans' first steps into space and how it took almost 2 centuries to leave their home system, they assumed that they weren't very smart either. "I found out from my friend later that it took them so long to leave their cradle because they had been warring amongst themselves almost the entire time," Alo stressed. The Empress spoke up again. "So they were fighting a civil war that whole time?" "No, Your Majesty, they were never a single government in the first place. They only formed that after finding out that other races existed. A damaged ship inadvertently fell out of FTL in their system. The crew was dead, so the only source of information was the ship. They examined the ship and reverse-engineered what they found, mixed with their technology," Alo added. "It had long been a dream of the humans to find life outside their world, so they were ecstatic to meet other races. They explored, they traded, they shared knowledge freely. So they were caught off guard when a Tarun fleet entered their home system and attacked them without warning. The humans suffered enormous casualties at first, but they weren't helpless," Alo said. "They'd fought wars amongst themselves for almost their entire existence, and they were very good at it, but they were comparatively novices at deep space combat. It took them months to drive the invaders out, and the cost was high for both sides." Alo paused. "I've heard rumors that Tarun survivors were traumatized by their later engagements with the humans, especially the ground forces. As a departing act of defiance, the Taruns launched a missile containing a biological weapon at Earth, the human cradle world. My human friend told me it caused an ecological disaster on their planet. Vast swaths of there became sterile. The biological agents were less effective against humans than the Taruns had hoped. Humans had a long history of dealing with virulent and deadly diseases, which helped protect them. It made humans sick, but only killed the weakest among them," Alo explained. "Unfortunately, This included large numbers of their youngest children. As my friend told it, they could forgive the initial invasion. It wasn't something they hadn't done in their internal conflicts. They might have answered the ecological devastation of their world with a punitive expedition against the Tyrans, something of equivalent damage. But the Tyrans killed their children by the millions, and that enraged them, Aloe continued. Most races only have a couple of words that refer to revenge. The humans have dozens, and none of them are good, Aloe explained. Vendetta, revenge, reckoning, retribution, reprisals, retaliation, vengeance, eye for an eye, vindictive, and others. But the Tyrans' actions brought out one of the worst types at their borders. The humans call it blood vengeance. What the Tyrans did could only be answered with their blood, and lots of it, Aloe emphasized. My human friend explained that the human race contains a darkness inside their soul that they fight to suppress. When it escapes and takes over an individual, the death and destruction they cause can ruin dozens of lives, Aloe continued. But when that darkness escapes and runs free through their entire race, then it can inflict horrors beyond your imagination. He once showed me their history, and I thought I'd seen enough in my lifetime that nothing would shock me. I was wrong. The things they'd done to each other were the most horrific things I'd ever seen, and that was to each other. So, imagine what would happen to an alien race, Aloe said, remembering the events clearly. This act brought out the very worst in them. It was like they went insane with grief. They combined the things they'd learned from captured Taran technology with their own. These new warships were black as night, with wings that made them look like some kind of nightmarish bird. Their body armor was jet black, with the helmets stylized into monstrous faces. Not just things from their nightmares, but from the Tarans too, Aloe said, recalling the details. They called this part of psychological warfare. They attacked their opponents' minds, not like a psychic or something, but by bringing their deepest fears to life. This is what traumatized the Taran survivors so badly. They couldn't understand the humans' ways of making wars. They'd stand up and fight when necessary, but the humans preferred to use tricks, deception, and mind games. They were like spirits, always striking where the Tarans didn't expect them, to destroy something vital or kill some Taran soldiers and vanish before guards could respond, Aloe explained. But things were different now. When their fleets came roaring out of their territories, they did not sneak, but bellowed like a charging Gannic beast. They wanted the Tarans to know they were coming and left a trail of destruction wherever they went, military or civilian. Nothing to the Tarans was left. No ships, no bases, no industry, and no Tarans. This tactic also made it hard for the Tarans to determine where the humans would strike next, and left them running around to places still smoldering from the humans' attacks. But no humans were there. There were times when the humans stayed and ambushed the Taran ships that arrived. Their wreckage orbited a dead world. The humans left the Taran homeworld for last, and after 5 years of war, they were ready for the end and surrounded the planet, Aloe finished. What happened to the Taran homeworld? The Empress asked, her curiosity evident. Aloe pointed out the window. Look for yourself. We are in orbit above it. The humans renamed it after the war was over, Aloe stated. Once the war was finished and their children were avenged, they stepped back from their insanity and took stock of what they had done. They had a word for it, genocide. It was something from their past that brought great hatred towards the ones to carry it out, and now their entire race was stained with that crime. So, they pulled back and abandoned all but the systems they now possess. But before they withdrew, they renamed the Taran homeworld Miasma and requested it be used by everyone else as a reminder, Aloe said. No one was eager to draw the human eye, so they agreed. A reminder of what they would do to anyone else that attacked them. One of the Kryn, Aloe paused, realizing he didn't know the name. Well, yes, but that wasn't why they did it. The term miasma was from one of their earliest myths, a term for a type of guilt that runs so deep that it permanently stains all of their race, their blood. It affects all of them, even the ones living today. They collectively let that darkness run free, and the results were so horrific that they don't feel it can be forgiven, only atoned for, Aloe finished. Every year, they mark the fall of the Taran homeworld, not with celebration, but reminders of what they did. Their avoidance of war is not to protect themselves. It's to protect others from them, Aloe explained. He could tell that only the Empress truly understood his point. The rest of them didn't seem convinced, and Grand Stratego and Kushara still thought their military was too superior to lose. Aloe sat in his favorite chair, enjoying just being among others. It was 3 years ago this week that he tried to convince the Kryn that attacking the humans was a bad idea and that killing their kids was a worse idea. And now, they were losing the war badly. Of the 138 systems they started with, they had less than 21 left. But not all of those systems fell to the humans. 57 of them broke away to form their own empire and allied with the humans. They were led by a very smart empress who not only listened to my advice, but took it a step further, Aloe reflected. When her foolish husband allowed Grand Stratego and Kushara to attack the humans, she sent a message to them. She offered a solution, allowing them to get revenge but avoid making the same mistake as before. She would break away from the empire with as many systems as possible and ally with the humans. Kryn civilians could flee to her new empire for safety. Her forces could even help evacuate those who surrendered, including military personnel, Aloe continued. Meanwhile, the humans could wreck her former husband's empire as they liked. She also told them she would be handing over any of the officers responsible for glassing the human colonies for trial, Aloe concluded. He looked forward to seeing Grand Stratego and Kushara on trial. As Aloe reclined in his favorite chair, reflecting on the events that had transpired, he couldn't help but marvel at the unfolding consequences of the Kryn's ill-fated decision to ignore his warnings about the humans. 3 years had passed since he had stood before Empress Shera and her council, trying to impress upon them the folly of attacking a race with such a dark and vengeful history. The Kryn, led by the arrogant Grand Stratego and Kushara, had dismissed Aloe's warnings, confident in their superior military might. They believed the humans were weak and fearful, easy prey for their expansionist ambitions. But what they didn't grasp was the depth of human resolve and the scars left by their encounter with the Taurans. Aloe had recounted to them the brutal history of the Taurans' invasion and the subsequent human retaliation, a tale of vengeance and destruction that had left entire worlds in ruins. The humans had unleashed a ferocity born of grief and inflicted a devastating blow upon the Taurans, culminating in their near-total annihilation. The renamed Tauran homeworld, Miasma, served as a stark reminder of the consequences of provoking humanity. Despite Aloe's impassioned plea and the generous compensation offered by Empress Shera, the Kryn proceeded with their plans. They attacked the human colonies, believing victory was assured. But they had underestimated the humans' tenacity and capacity for war. The humans, guided by their newfound allies among the splintered Kryn factions and former Kryn allies who had defected to their cause, mounted a fierce defense. The war had been brutal and costly for both sides, but the Kryn were now reeling. From 138 systems under their control, they were reduced to less than 21, with more defecting or falling to the humans' advancing fleets every month. Empress Shera had shown remarkable foresight and leadership, breaking away from her foolish husband's empire and forging alliances with the humans and other disaffected Kryn factions. Aloe had watched from the sidelines as the tide turned decisively against Grand Stratego and Kushara and his ilk. The humans' tactics, honed over centuries of internal and external conflicts, proved devastatingly effective against the overconfident Kryn. Their psychological warfare, combined with strategic strikes aimed at crippling the Kryn's military and industrial infrastructure, had shattered their once mighty empire. Now, as Aloe sat in the bar, savoring the calm amidst the chaos of war, he contemplated the unfolding trial of Grand Stratego and Kushara. Empress Shera's promise to deliver him and other responsible officers to the humans for trial was being fulfilled. It was a poetic justice, a reckoning for those who had disregarded the warnings of an old spacer with a lifetime of experiences. Looking out into the bar, Aloe noticed a few familiar faces, a mix of humans, Kryn, and other galactic races. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation, yet there was also a sense of relief among those who had chosen peace over conquest. They had witnessed firsthand the consequences of underestimating the humans and had learned a hard lesson about the price of arrogance in the galaxy. As Aloe finished his drink, he reflected on his decision to speak up that fateful day 3 years ago. He had never sought glory or recognition, but he knew that his knowledge and experiences had played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of this conflict. The humans had shown mercy to those who surrendered and offered a path to redemption for former enemies who were willing to embrace peace. In the end, Alo found solace in knowing that his words had not fallen on deaf ears. Empress Shera had listened, acted, and made a difference. As the trial of Grand Stratego Enak Kushara approached, Alo felt a sense of closure, a chapter in his long life that would be remembered not for battles won or lost, but for the wisdom gained and the bonds forged across the stars. And so, Alo reclined once more in his favorite chair, ready to witness the unfolding of history and the dawn of a new era shaped by alliances rather than conquests, by understanding rather than ignorance.